welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Today I am discussing The Shadow of the Torturer, book 1 of the Book of the New Sun by Wolfe. There will be no spoilers in this video. However, I will be discussing The Shadow of the Torturer as part of a series of discussions with Matt from Matt on Books and a scholar by the name of Paul Williams, a scholar of fantasy, in fact. So I'm very much looking forward to those discussions, and we're going to be doing full spoilers during those discussions. But this video, once again, no spoilers. Although I have to ask myself, are spoilers even possible when you're not even sure what just happened in the book you read? Which brings me right to the themes of The Shadow of the Torturer. Beginning with the flawed nature of human perception, especially in relation to language. The power of language is vast. It is a wonderful tool in some ways for conveying human experience. However, it is also very much limited and flawed. In fact, you probably would do well to examine how language is an imposition on human perceptions. In other words, our language influences the way we see the world. This is very much a phenomenon that has been talked about for some time, discussed and debated, often by the name of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which is something that linguists and anthropologists know very much the concept of, which is simply that your given language is going to influence the way you see the world. A great example being when an Inuit sees what I would consider to be a pile of snow, the Inuit, because they have so many more words for snow in their language, is going to see a lot more subtlety, is going to see a lot more things than I'm going to see. I'm going to see 1, 2, maybe 3 things, whereas the Inuit might see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things. So there you have an example, a very common one, of the difference in perceptions as a product of our languages. Another great example being the gender binary that is embedded in most languages, something that has been challenged more than ever in recent years. Or perhaps we could just talk about the difference between collateral damage and civilian deaths, or just simply stating children died. You see, there's a huge difference between those 3 things, even though they purport to mean the same thing. So our language influences our perception of reality. Now, since language is such an influence on our perceptions, how reliable is language, in fact, in conveying human experience? And that is central to, I think, what Wolfe is doing in the Book of the New Sun, certainly so far in The Shadow of the Torturer. How reliable is language in conveying human experience? What actually is happening in The Shadow of the Torturer? I think it's a legitimate question when you consider that what we have here in Severian is an unreliable narrator. That is very evident. I think if you know anything about Book of the New Sun, you've heard about the unreliable narrator, which is most certainly made clear by the fact that Severian keeps insisting that he has a perfect memory, and methinks he doth protest too much. And in fact, memory itself is a flawed instrument. It is very much a product of the unreliability of language itself, because language preserves and tweaks memory. And thus, you could even argue that identity, which rests on memory and language, is in question. Not to mention how language as a vehicle for memories and perception feeds our ideas about myth and history and our very cultural views, including our morality. And this is something that Wolfe is most definitely exploring in The Shadow of the Torturer. The nature of morality, where it comes from, and how reliable is it? It is no accident that Severian is a torturer by profession, and that is right on the back of the book, so no spoiler there either. Severian is a torturer by training. And the questions of morality that come into play are, I think, fascinating as a result of that particular occupational choice on the part of Gene Wolfe. What may seem moral to someone brought up among torturers may not seem normal to someone who is not brought up under such circumstances. So, all of this is just a fascinating exploration, and the experience of reading Shadow of the Torturer is difficult to convey, but it reads a little bit like an allegory in some way. I felt like I was reading something like Piers Plowman or Pilgrim's Progress or something of that nature. Because the characters seem flat and often act with minimal or even no explanation of motive. Things just seem to happen almost randomly with a superficial read here. But what is the meaning here? Allegory, if we think of allegory as a one-for-one correspondence of meaning, this is actually the opposite of allegory, in fact. Which makes sense, given that a major theme is the unreliability of language to convey what is actually happening. Severian's lens, the lens through which we are getting this story, gives us a very distorted image. That is made clear to the reader, that don't necessarily trust your narrator here. So we have, instead of the one-for-one correspondence as a result, we have the constant slippage of meaning. We also glimpse, and this is sort of ironic because it's through language, but we get a glimpse, and I think this is something that Gene Wolfe is really interested in. So we glimpse the pre-linguistic formation of meaning within the human psyche. This is before language gets its hands on meaning. So what we experience in here before we try to even articulate it. This is what Wolfe is attempting, which is, in a way, it's impossible when you think about it. Exploring the experience of meaning through words before language alters meaning. Pretty cool. Pretty mind-blowing in a way, I think. So, and all of this is reinforced, I think, by the fact that the Book of the New Sun is really difficult to categorize. And that's, maybe Gene Wolfe just didn't care. He just wanted to write what he wanted to write. He wanted to explore what he wanted to explore. It is very difficult to categorize. Earth, U-R-T-H, the place where this is happening. U-R-T-H, Earth. It sounds like, but it doesn't look like Earth, E-A-R-T-H, right? The words are different. And that is a very deliberate choice on Gene Wolfe's part. Is this Earth or is this some other place, some other Earth? Which Earth is this? Is this in the future? Is this some dystopian, bleak future? Is it science fiction? Is it fantasy? I don't think you can really answer any of those questions definitively. One thing you can say is that the experience of Shadow of the Torturer is very dreamlike and surreal. There seem to be elements also, yes, of science fiction, futuristic stuff, references to possibly aircraft and spaceships, but also there's just magic, right? Which we tend to associate with fantasy, or what at least appears at the moment to the reader to be magic. We'll see where he goes with all of that. But it is very dreamlike and surreal. And you get these glimpses of the narrator, Severian, just what he lets slip, about his present. This is Severian the narrator versus Severian the character. And I think it is important to distinguish between these two. But what does he choose to reveal about his identity in these little, perhaps strategic moments when he lets slip something about his present as he's telling us this narrative of the past, which we can tell has been worked over in his perfect memory. So there's a lot of discomfort, in a way, in reading Shadow of the Torturer. It is a bit torturing to read Shadow of the Torturer because you just don't know. If you like the comfort of knowing something for sure, well, this book is not going to deliver that to you. If you like a simple, action-packed story where you can just follow the plot along, this is not it. This is going to be confusing. And I think the value in that is that this is a story that makes you think. So I think there's value in Shadow of the Torturer long after you put the story down. This is one of those reads where you kind of mull it over and you think about it, and it makes you ask questions. This is the essence, I think, of The Shadow of the Torturer, that it is a tale that invites questions. And so I look forward to reading the rest of the Book of the New Sun. I am confused, and I think it's bizarre, but I also think it's fascinating. And I'm looking forward to finding out what Gene Wolfe is perhaps up to, or maybe what Severian is up to in this incredibly difficult to categorize but fascinating story. All right, well, that is it from me for now. Until next time.